Welcome to the Arizona Clinical Informatics Educational Series on Cerner Power Chart, Lesson Number 3, Care Compass. Care Compass is the work page for nurses and other specialties for completing assigned tasks. Cerner Power Chart is a task-based system, meaning that a large portion of the documentation required on a patient can be documented via a task. Please keep in mind, as nurses, you should still practice your critical thinking skills when caring for patients, and you should not be solely dependent on a task documentation to be your complete documentation on your patients, as not every documentation required on your patient will be evidenced by a task. That being said, if there is a task, it is recommended that you document via that task when completed that portion of the documentation. Let's do an overview of Care Compass. This section defaults to the first screen opened when a nurse logs into Cerner Power Chart. It is generated from patient list. From your patients list, you will see the patients assigned to that list. You will see new orders, most recent vitals, and any tasks that are due, including items such as medications and interdisciplinary requirements that cannot be documented directly from Care Compass. There is also a timeline running along the bottom of the screen, helping the user in seeing what tasks are due to be documented on during set hourly time frames. Click on the down arrow button next to Patient List. You will see the available patients list, the ones we created in Lesson 1, appear. This allows you to toggle back and forth between the lists. Here we see the Med-Surg unit pull up. Notice on a larger patient list, only the first 13 patients will show. You would have to use the scroll bar to the right in order to see the remaining patients. It is recommended that you utilize a created personal list, such as My Patient List. This way, you'll be charting on your assigned patients, reducing the chances of selecting the wrong patient and documenting on them. Let's go back to the My Patient List. You'll notice on the My Patients list that patients 2A, 6A, and 7A have no relationship established on them. Because of this, you do not see the information that 1A and 3A have associated on their rows. Let's select the Establish Relationship button. This gives us the list of patients on My Patient List that we have yet to establish a relationship with. I could select the Select All button in the lower left-hand corner, and this would place a check mark to all the names, and then I could establish the same relationship to all patients. Of note, a nurse should only be establishing relationships with patients that they have a direct care relationship with. An exception to this is a charge nurse, which has an indirect direct relationship with all the patients on a set unit. For now, let's select the box next to Sydney Andra. Select the drop-down next to the relationship bar. Let's establish the relationship of registered nurse. Select the Establish button. You'll see the data for 7A, Sydney Andra, populate as 1A and 3A already were. You can also establish a relationship by clicking on the wording No Relationship Exists below the patient's name, such as here for 6A. Using the drop-down as before, you'll see the selections. Select Registered Nurse. Select the Establish button. You'll now see that 6A has data available now that the relationship has been established. If you hover the mouse cursor over the patient's name, much information that is similar to the patient info bar we discussed in Lesson 2 appears. By utilizing the right click on the mouse, you will have more data actions to perform on the patient, such as Remove Patient, Bedside Handoff, Inpatient Summary, EMAR, INO-INET, and Discharge Summary. Each of these choices will perform an action or send you to other data points within the chart. Let's select Remove Patient. A pop-up box will appear asking you to confirm if you want to remove this patient from your list. Select OK. Patient 6A has now disappeared from our patient list. By selecting plus Add Patient, you can add a patient to your list. In this particular option, you are taken to the encounter search. Once you locate the patient you want, the system will add the patient to the screen. Other methods of adding a patient to your list is by selecting Patients List from the toolbar. I can select the Med-Surg 2 Patients List, find the patient that I want to add, in this case 10A, and select that patient. Right-click on the patient and choose Add to a Patient List. Then go to the My Patients list. You'll need to select the Refresh or Minutes Ago button in order for the changes to be present on your patient's list. As we go back to our Care Compass, we may need to refresh as well in order to pull the changes into Care Compass that we just made. Your patient may have a red circle with an exclamation mark on it. This indicated that your patient has new orders that need reviewed by the nurse. Select the icon. A pop-up will appear showing all items that require review. Each order to review has a selection box next to it. The nurse can select the box as they are reviewing the order and continue their way down the list. This starts the process of documenting that you, the nurse, has reviewed the orders and will be signing off on that review. You can continue reviewing and selecting the orders upon review. Looking at your right-hand side of your screen, you will see a scroll bar. The scroll bar indicates that there are more orders to review than that which can fit on one screen. As you make your way to the end of the list, you will also see a Select All box. As the name suggests, all orders will be selected. Note, you as the nurse are responsible for making sure you are aware of all the orders you are reviewing. As this is a legal record, this data is discoverable, and you will be held liable if there is a missed completion or an event that occurs, so do not utilize the Select All button to clear the list without reviewing the data. You can then select the Mark as Reviewed button. This will sign off all orders as reviewed. You will notice the red circle with the exclamation mark icon has now disappeared after completing the review. Notice on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the most recent entered vital sign data that appears on the patient. All data here may not have been entered at the exact time. Hovering over a result will give you more data information. The displayed data, normal range, date and time entered. Immediately to the right of the vital signs is a bar ending with a number. In this instance, the number says 50. This indicates the number of activities or tasks that are due to be documented on the patient. If I hover over this bar, I again see a breakdown of the activities that are due: medications, patient care, assessments, and other. If we look at the top right-hand corner, we can see a red circle with the number 36 beside it. This indicates the number of orders to be reviewed on all of our patients in our list. In this instance, this would represent the red circles next to the patients in 3A and 7A. If I click on the icon, I will see a breakdown of the patient. At the bottom of the screen, going all the way across the bottom, are graph bars indicating tasks that are either overdue or are due during an hourly time range. Clicking on Overdue, I see a pop-up box that shows me all items that are overdue by patient. Notice there is a scroll bar. Moving the scroll bar will move you to review all the overdue tasks. You can see that the data is quite lengthy on these trained patients. Let's select the 1400 graph bar. You can see the data is similar, but specific to tasks due during that time frame from 1400 to 1459. Again, there is quite a significant amount of data that is present. Utilizing the scroll bar, we can see all the tasks for this time period. This is a good way of preparing your day for the needs of the patient. You can repeat the process on all the time bar graphs. Let's direct our attention back up to the activity bar with the number 50 and click on the number. This opens up the task view of all the tasks available to document on the patient. Please keep in mind that this is a trained patient and it has more than the usual number of overdue tasks. Hopefully, the off-going nurse would have completed these overdue tasks before you took over the patient as an oncoming nurse. Do you see the gray box with the left arrow on it? Let's select it. The task viewer closes and we're back to the Care Compass screen. You'll notice the gray box now has a right arrow. Let's select it. This expands out the task viewer again. Notice the list pulls up current task first and the overdue task will always show up first. They will be colored in red. As we have scrolled down the list, we'll see that the tasks are colored black. These are still current tasks, but they are not overdue. Each task has the due date time to the right of the task title. Notice as we scroll down, there is a header of unscheduled, 1500, and interdisciplinary showing. These are just further divisions of the task. Let's scroll back up to the top of the task. You can expand your viewable task by selecting 4 hours or even 12 hours. The default is 2 hours. Though defaulted to the Scheduled Unscheduled tab, people tend to forget that there are tasks that are considered PRN or continuous, and they will show up only under that tab. Let's select the PRN continuous task. Notice that there are now different tasks that we can see. Selecting on the Plans of Care tab shows us the suggested plans that need attended to. We'll discuss care plans in lesson number 6. The Patient Information tab shows patient informational data, and it is an easy way to review diet, allergies, and who is the attending and consulting providers on the case. Moving back to the Scheduled Unscheduled tab, and we're hovering over the first overdue task, which is a CBC lab collection. Notice when I hover over the task, it provides additional data for the nurse. In this case, it's telling me how much blood to draw and which tube I would need to use to collect the specimen. Clicking on a task, it highlights blue. Look now to the lower right-hand corner of the task activity screen and you'll see 3 buttons: Done, Not Done, and Document. Notice that the Document button is grayed out. This typifies a task that can be only completed as done or not done. There is no documentation required on this task, just a completion. Let's select the Done button. This will open up the lab specimen collection screen. Notice the time defaults to the current time. If this is a late documentation, which we should limit how many late documentations we do, as we recommend documenting at time of occurrence, we can adjust this time to reflect the correct collection time. For demonstration purposes, we've adjusted the time from 1630 to 1600, and we need to select the OK button to complete. Notice that the lab collection task for CBC has disappeared. Next, let's click on the 12-lead ECG task. Notice that this task does not turn blue, but a light gray. You'll also notice that the 3 action buttons below are grayed out. This indicates that this is an informational-only task. It is assigned to respiratory therapy to complete, and it is showing up on your task to let you know that an ECG was due and is not yet completed. This gives you the opportunity as the nurse to notify RT and see why it hasn't been completed. Medications are the same. They are informational-only tasks. You cannot document them from Care Compass. We discussed medication administration in lesson number 9. However, notice the dark gray icons, there are 4 of them, in the upper left-hand corner of the task activity screen. These are filter tabs. Dark gray indicates that the icon classification task is visible. Let's click on the icon that looks like a capsule. By clicking on it, it now turns white, and you'll notice that all the medication informational tasks have been filtered out or hidden from view. Next, we will click on the Ambulate task, and it will highlight blue. Notice the due time on this task. This task was due to be documented on at 2200 on the day before. After it had been selected, the Document and Not Done button are activated. Let's select Document because we want to complete this task. Selecting the Document button takes us to the INO INET in the Activity View band. The Activity View band in INET is only active from selecting a task. The data you document on from here is located in the bands below, but may be scattered throughout those bands. The Activity Task View pulls together the necessary documentation into one place. There are 3 things that I want you to pay particularly close attention to. Number 1, the date and time. Number 2, the dual paper icon next to the time. And number 3, the blue cylinder icon. Notice our date and time states 4:22 and 16:30. Remember, our task that we selected was an overdue task, and it had a date and time of 4:21 and 2200. The time defaults on your task to the current date and time, not the task due date and time. To correctly document, you have to change the time. Please remember the next steps to document overdue tasks correctly. If you do not, you will have missed documentation. I want to take a closer look at these icons and define them for you. The first one being the paper icons. It represents that the time immediately following this icon is the time associated with the task. Only documenting in this time frame with these paper icons will complete the task. The blue cylinder icon allows you to adjust the task documentation time. Only by using this icon will the paper icons move to the correct date and time for the completion of the task. Let's change our task documentation time to reflect our actual documentation time. Select the blue cylinder icon. This opens up the documentation time window. Let's adjust our date and time to represent the true times of the documentation. We'll need to select the task we want to reflect the changes to documentation. Then select the OK button. If you notice, now there are two time columns, our original one and the new one with the correct documentation date and time. Notice as well the dual paper icon has moved to the correct time. Let's complete our documentation. Notice that the data that we entered is blue. This means it has not yet been finalized and can be adjusted without modification. After making sure your documentation is correct, which includes making sure it's on the correct date and time, select the green check mark. This will save the documentation in a finalized format. For more information on documentation, please refer to lesson number 7 on iNet. Once saved, the data turns black. With our documentation now complete, let's head back to Care Compass. My documentation is completed, but I'm still seeing the overdue task. I will need to hit the refresh or minutes ago icon. Refreshing closed the task activity screen. You will need to select the gray bar with the right arrow to open it back up. Notice upon re-entry the medications are showing again. We can select the capsule icon to filter them out. Now we notice the ambulate overdue task is removed as it was completed. We can document on more than one task at a time. However, be cautious as to how many tasks you select to document at one time, as you cannot log off the chart until all are completed or bypassed. Select your first task that you would want to document, and it highlights blue. Holding the Control key down on your keyboard, select the other task that you want to document on. They too will be highlighted blue. Then you can select the Document button. Note, you can also click and drag the mouse if you want to highlight more than one task at a time. The first task opens the document. Here you will see a Power Form open instead of the iNet activity view. Task documentation varies on setup of the documentation's field's locations. If you'll notice, the height and weight have been entered previously, and the dosing weight is yellow, indicating it is a required field. We'll enter a dosing weight and select the green check mark to continue. The task now changes to current height and weight. Let's enter a dosing weight of 78 kilograms. To complete out the task, let's select the green check mark. A pop-up box called Discern Alert or Discern Notification has appeared. This alert will appear occasionally when newly entered items greatly differ from a previously entered data. Let's select the window expansion icon so we can fully read the Discern Alert. This notification or alert is a read-only. It is giving the user a suggestion of what to do next. Select the red X in the upper left-hand corner to delete and close. We are yet again taken back to Care Compass, and the two tasks are completed and have dropped off the task viewer. Let's select the Medical Service Consult task to document. Here another power form is opened up that we need to complete documentation on. There are no required fields to complete, but you would want to complete all of the viable documentation that occurred during your activity. When documentation is completed, select the green check mark. You will return back to Care Compass and the task viewer, and you'll notice that the task is removed. Here is yet another ambulate task that is overdue and needed to be completed. However, the task was not able to be completed due to one reason or another. In this instance, we will select the Not Done button. A reason for not completing the task pops up, and the user must complete the explanation. We will select a choice from the drop-down options. In this instance, none of the pre-built reasons fit while I didn't complete the task, so I'm selecting the choice of Other. I can type in my own comment and select OK. The data populates and I can now save the data by selecting the green check mark. My task drops off. Let's now go to the PRN Continuous tab. I want to select the PRN task of notifying the physician provider. Once your task is highlighted, select the Document button. Notice that the iNet activity view pulled up and I can document the specific data that I need. Also notice that the previous documentation from the PowerForm task of Medical Service Consult also shows here. This shows us that even though data was entered through the PowerForm, it crossed over for us to see in the activity view in iNet. I will cancel the documentation and return back to Care Compass and close out the task viewer. Congratulations! You have just completed Lesson 3 of the Arizona Clinical Informatics Educational Series on Cerner PowerChart Care Compass. Our next lesson is lesson number 4, which covers the adult admission history.